Because you can handle the truth. What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Whoa. I'm getting my feed sent back to me again. Oh, there it is. We're fixed now. All right. Now we've got the technical gremlins taken care of. Welcome to the show. It's Tuesday, July 31st, 2018. Last day of the month. Tomorrow is the 1st of August, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room dealing with all of our technical gremlins, and let's just get right on into it here. Over in Syria, I think it's safe to say it's all pretty much over but the shouting there. Damascus is literally a step away from liberating the entirety of southern Syria right up to that Golan buffer zone. And, Israel's still out there saying, don't you dare come one step further. Don't you take one step further. We're ready for you. And they're advancing into the Armuk Valley. The problem there's an unknown number of ISIS fighters and ISIS-linked individuals who are hiding among the civilians in the recently liberated areas. And without intense security measures, these persons will be a source of constant threat of terrorist attacks. So there's a little bit of mopping up to do, but this one's pretty much over. And the United States did not get what they wanted. So I think this counts as a defeat, but of course the U.S. will never admit it. In fact, there's an article over at Zero Hedge saying that right now the U.S. is looking for an exit strategy. They're looking to make a face-saving exit from Syria, and they're going to make up some kind of thing. Well, we dealt with that stampede of woolly mammoths in Syria, and now can we go home? Or we chased those space aliens back into space from Syria, and now we can go home. And some other thing that makes it look like victory, but it really isn't. And that is probably going to destroy much of the momentum of the war machine. Although apparently SecDef Mattis is out there saying that the U.S. forces in Syria are going to start conducting joint patrols with Turkey, another country that is in Syria without permission or legal grounds to be there. And so Mattis says they're going to start conducting joint patrols on somebody else's property, like it's their divine right to do that. And he's saying this is an exercise that's going to go for, maybe 4-6 weeks, not months. But it's very obvious that Mattis and Erdogan do not recognize Syrian territorial integrity. And of course, the real issue is what's going to happen when they run into Syrian or Russian forces. Now, the Russians appear to be working to avoid a direct confrontation with the United States. And apparently Russia's ambassador Anatoly Viktorov was being interviewed on Israel's Channel 10 News and said Russia cannot force Iran to withdraw its military from Syria, no matter how many times Israel demands that they do it. And Iran says they will not leave unless Syria tells them to. And Russia tried to come up with a compromise where Iranian forces would stay 100 kilometers from the buffer zone, but Israel rejected that as well. Their attitude is, we want them gone completely. Do it, or we'll throw a tantrum. We'll use the H word on you. And Viktorov told the reporters that Iran's military presence in Syria is fully legitimate, according to UN principles and the UN Charter. He then made an interesting comment saying that Russia is not okay with Israeli attacks on Syria, but it wasn't up to Russia to prevent them. So Russia is basically standing back from Israel because Putin knows if they go head-to-head with Israel, that means going head-to-head with the United States. And even though in all probability Russia would win that, everybody would really lose in the long run. So now the U.S. is complaining about Russian jamming posing a growing threat to the U.S. troops in Syria. And apparently American troops deployed in Syria illegally are facing the same kind of electronic countermeasures that the crew of the USS Donald Cook did up in the Black Sea. electronic attacks that is paralyzing all their whiz-bang high-tech equipment. They're complaining, you know, are the Russians allowed to do that? I didn't think they were allowed to do that. And the U.S. is trying to put a good face on it, saying, well, it allows us to study what Russia's doing and develop countermeasures, which is definitely part of electronic warfare. Every time you use a new device or weapon, you're giving away information about how it works to the enemy. Now, interestingly enough, up in Afghanistan, apparently U.S. diplomats have had secret meetings with Taliban without involving the Afghan government. And for basically over a decade, the Taliban have refused to negotiate with the Afghan government, who they view as a puppet regime controlled by Washington. Gee, you think? And they have instead sought to speak directly with the United States without Kabul's mediation. So apparently back in 2015, the United States sought to initiate peace talks with the Taliban in the Qatari capital, Doha. But apparently the effort collapsed after the Afghan government denounced it and demanded a seat at the table. And the negotiation process has been kind of dormant ever since. So it's kind of a three-way issue. The puppet rulers don't want to stop being puppet rulers. The Taliban want the puppet rulers out. The U.S. is basically trying to play both sides. And Afghanistan is our longest-running war, second only to the Korean War. And if you count the Korean War up until the armistice, Afghanistan wins hands down. 17 going on 18 years. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Over in Iran, Rouhani's aide responded to Donald Trump's tweet that he was ready to meet with Rouhani by saying the U.S. must first return to the nuclear deal. Then Tehran will talk. And this advisor to Rouhani said, it's the key. That's got to happen first. Respecting the Iranian nation's right, reducing hostilities, and returning to the nuclear deal are steps that can be taken to pave the bumpy road of talks between Iran and the United States. Now, others in the government of Iran are saying it really is ultimately impossible to engage with the current U.S. government because of this fiercely hostile policy toward the Islamic Republic, and that's out there for everybody to see. The hostility toward Iran has been broadcast far and wide from U.S. political figures, going all the way back to John McCain dancing on the stage and singing Bomb, Bomb Iran. So it's kind of hard to establish any kind of a rapport leading to trust with that kind of attitude. This is coming from the Foreign Ministry spokesman Bahram Qassami. Said this basically yesterday. Now, remember last week, Australian media was saying the U.S. was preparing a military action against Iran. It was denounced as fake news and a fiction. Then yesterday, we were starting to get it from the U.S. corporate media, and today it's in CNN. U.S. examining military action against Iran. So, more wars, more money for the military-industrial complex. Over in Yemen, there's a lot of heavy fighting south of Hodeidah. Now, Hodeidah is key. It's that port city. The Houthis are trying to turn it over to the United Nations. And Saudi-linked Yemenites are saying, no, the Houthis have to surrender completely, the entire country, before they'll let that happen. And a lot of people are getting killed. A lot of civilians, a lot of non-combatants. This has been a very, very, very bloody war. And all of it was just about who was going to control the region. Some years back, the United States pulled off what they termed a successful intervention, and they regime changed Yemen, and they put in a puppet government. And the people of Yemen didn't like living under a puppet government, so they threw them out. And so the U.S. went to Saudi Arabia and said, you got to help us slap down Yemen so they accept their puppet rulers. because nobody breaks free of the American empire. And that's what this war is really all about, trying to force the people of Yemen to accept a foreign-serving government. And you got to admire the courage of the Yemenites. They're fighting back, and they're holding their own against Saudi Arabia. Now, apparently, Poroshenko over in Ukraine is in trouble politically. Western leaders are starting to realize he can't pull off the job of, first of all, pulling all of Ukraine back together, let alone regaining Crimea. And leaders of Western countries are saying some very unflattering things to the current Ukrainian leadership. And Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that when Western or European counterparts communicate with the leaders of today's Ukraine behind closed doors, you know, they're trying to provoke some kind of a reaction. Basically, what's happening is the U.S. government is experiencing buyer's remorse. They bought the new Ukraine. They supported that coup d'etat that kicked out Yanukovych. They put in President Chocolate, and they thought all was going to be well, one step closer to containment of that evil Russia who's aggressing against everybody. And they've stumbled rather badly. So that is turning out to be a mess here. Down in Nicaragua, their leader, Daniel Ortega, says he has proof the United States is financing the ongoing violence in his country through organizations like the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. This is not the first time they've been accused of it. Russia's already kicked USAID out of Russia for trying to fund and agitate the opposition. Ortega then went along to say we are facing a powerful enemy who has carried out an armed invasion of Nicaragua several times and continues to interfere in Nicaragua's affairs. Now, you remember all the way back in the 1980s, that CIA gun and drug running operation out of Arkansas was going into Nicaragua to arm the Contras against the Sandinistas. Again, kicking out the democratically elected government, putting in puppet rulers. And it continues to this day. And it is a mess here. Over in Israel, we reported this briefly yesterday, but one of the vessels belonging to the Freedom Flotilla activist group was hijacked by Israeli forces in international waters after having been threatened via radio. The boat was en route to Gaza with 22 people from 16 nations on board and carrying a cargo of $15,000 worth of medical supplies. The Israeli Defense Forces confirmed the interception of the vessel, saying it violated the blockade of Gaza. And the IDF added that the boat is now being towed to the port of Ashdod, and all the supplies can only be delivered through it. Now, reports from the organization itself are saying there was violence, that the crew of the Freedom Flotilla ship were tasered. They were hit with tear gas. They were flat out beaten. And one of the passengers on the Al-Awda ship was Joe Meador, who was a survivor of Israel's attack on the USS Liberty. So they're all apparently in Israeli custody and being held incommunicado. Only 2 of the passengers have been released, and the rest are being held in Givon prison in Israel. Now, one of those released, Zohar Chamberlain Regev, who's an Israeli citizen, contested the Israeli Defense Force statement the ship had been captured without exceptional incident. And Zohar said people on board were tasered and hit by masked IOF soldiers. We did not get our passports or belongings before we got off the boat. Do not believe the reports of peaceful interception. And apparently she saw blood on the deck of the Al-Awda as the last participants were being dragged off the ship. So she and one other Israeli passenger, Yonatan Shapira, were charged with attempting to enter Gaza and conspiracy for before being released here. So again, it's another PR nightmare. Now, Palestinian activists are saying the seizure of the aid ship can't contain the Palestine movement. Everybody who sails on those flotillas knows they're going to be intercepted. But it makes headlines around the world and reminds everybody of Israel's brutal blockade against the people of Gaza. And that's the whole point. And that's why they need our support. Now, this ship, the Al Auda, and was flying under the Norwegian flag. So the organizers are demanding the government of Norway intercede with Israel to say, we demand the return of our people and we demand the return of our property. First and foremost, because Israel seized the ship 70 miles out at sea in international waters. The ship had not broken the Gaza blockade, which Israel now has set at 3 miles. That's now considered Gaza's territorial fishing waters, just 3 miles out. And as I mentioned yesterday, when you board another vessel without permission in international waters, that is piracy. So Israel needs to basically get itself a pirate flag as its new national flag. You know, take down that Star of David, put up the skull and crossbones. Now, Israel's behavior is beginning to draw criticism even within Israel itself. And they're talking, first of all, about the treatment of the Freedom Flotilla, the treatment of Ahed Tamimi, the nation-state law. A lot of people are saying that was a huge mistake. Israel's largest newspaper is saying Israel has just declared itself an apartheid state. And they're sharply critical. This is not meeting with approval, even within Israel itself, even within the Israeli media. And this article is basically calling on Netanyahu's opposition, headed currently by Tzipi Livni, to unite and present the public with a strong, simple message of equality. Hopefully that's going to happen. Now, Israel continues to justify everything it's doing on the basis of self-defense against Gaza. Oh, poor Israel, we only have tanks and body armor and machine guns and nuclear weapons, and we're just terrified by these flaming balloons and flaming kites. But in fact, under international law, Israel cannot claim a right to use any force in Gaza, whether moderate or excessive, because, you know, Gaza isn't the invading force. I mean, Israel goes into Gaza all the time. The border is very porous for Israelis. They go in and out of Gaza all the time. So it's not like there's an armed border in any kind of a confrontation, in any kind of a war. It's just more Israeli bovine excrement fed to you by America's corporate media. And like I said, I think that Bloody Monday massacre was basically the turning point. Israel's equivalent of the Amritsar massacre. Now, getting on back to Ahed Tamimi and her family, this has turned into another PR disaster for Israel. When the Israeli soldiers came to the Tamimi home and assaulted her family, damaged the property, she stood up to a soldier, fully armed soldier, and she slapped him. It was caught on video and it went viral around the world. And Israel, rather than backing down, because Israel never backs down, they threw her in prison for 8 months and they turned her into an international icon. And Tamimi is being compared to female heroes like Joan of Arc and Anne Frank, Rosa Parks, Hannah Senes, and she's being championed by American celebrities like Sarah Silverman, Alice Walker, Danny Glover, and Rosario Dawson. They made a real mess of this. We'll be right back.
Oh, yeah. corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And I'm looking at this article from Electronic Intifada, and it's telling a story about this gentleman, Fadel Abu al-Qumsan, who has survived 2 attacks over the last 4 years. Back in August of 2014, Israel bombed his home in the Jabalia refugee camp of northern Gaza. 2 of his nieces and his brother-in-law were killed. Now, earlier this year, Fadel joined the Great March of Return and was shot by an Israeli sniper while he was 700 meters from the boundary fence. Now, Israel's claim is that you're not to come within 100 meters, then you become a target. But this guy was shot 700 meters away. Over in China, tensions are still a little unsettled there over this one China, two China issue. Now, Trump's come on out and tweeted he supports the one China policy. But China is still very concerned over the fact that the U.S. maintains a de facto embassy in Taiwan, and that Trump is considering stationing Marines there. Because from China's point of view, if you have an embassy in Taiwan, you're recognizing Taiwan as a sovereign, independent nation. Well, Xi Jinping, enough pressure. Trump is used to moving embassies around, so I don't think you really have all that much to worry about. Anyway, now over in Korea, top generals from both North and South Korea are going to meet, well, actually met today in the truce village of Panmunjom on basically details on how to reduce military tensions along the demilitarized zone. And the agreement to ease tensions was reached during a previous summit, following which North Korea began to withdraw their artillery that they had stationed along the DMZ, which could reach Seoul. They got a lot of guns over there in North Korea. And so they're really working on ratcheting down the tension. I still think, I would bet a jar of kimchi that Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in are looking at eventual reunification, after which Kim Jong-un won't have to worry about U.S. invasion. The U.S. wouldn't have a reasonable justification to invade. But it looks like those who want war in Korea are still trying to stir the pot, because over at the Washington Compost, and citing a single anonymous U.S. official, they've come out with a claim North Korea might be building new ICBMs. They might be building them, and they're claiming to have satellite photos suggesting work is underway at North Korea's Sanumdong research site. This was a site linked to past missiles, so naturally they concluded the factory might be building 1 or 2 new ICBMs. Of course, there's no direct evidence North Korea is doing this. In fact, North Korea dismantled a test launching site for liquid-fueled ICBMs days ago. Now, North Korea does have its own space launch capability. Maybe they're getting ready to put up a new weather satellite. Nobody really knows. They even admit in the article there's no actual evidence, but you should be worried. You should be thinking North Korea, ICBM, North Korea, ICBM. The United States military's Africa Command, I thought they called it AFRICOM, but Africa Command has a very Nazi ring to it, has confirmed that its forces are deploying armed drones in Niger. Now, the West African country's government granted American forces permission in November of last year to arm their drones, but neither side had previously confirmed their deployment. And so now the U.S. Africa Command has armed intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft in Niger to improve our combined ability to respond to threats and other security issues in the region. Currently, the drones are deployed to Niger's Air Base 101 in the capital, and said it's part of the long-term strategic partnership between the two countries to counter armed groups in the region. Now, here's an interesting little article, came out of Russia Today, and they're poking fun at The Economist, because The Economist came out with this article basically saying that polygamy is responsible for these civil wars in Asia, rather the Middle East and Africa. It's all the fault of having too many wives. Now, that really is silly. The reason there are so many of these wars all over Africa and the Middle East is the U.S. is playing with other people's countries again. And that's really what's going on. But The Economist wants you to think, oh, no, everything, it would all be peaceful if we could just get those Middle Easterners and those Africans to have just one wife the way we do. We've got to force them to live the way we do. We're going to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, as you know, Donald Trump has been talking up the creation of a Space Force. Basically, it's a rehash of Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, otherwise known as Star Wars. And Congress seemed rather cool on the idea. After all, the last time we went through this, spent huge amounts of money and accomplished almost nothing, except scaring the Soviet Union to accelerate their spending and push it over the edge into collapse. But the defense budget for next year doesn't have an item for the Space Force. However, the Pentagon is already starting to set up the command structure. They're going to have a new combatant command, a new space procurement agency, that would be fun to work for, and a new space operations force. So they're getting ready. They know the money's going to be there somewhere at some point. Meanwhile, apparently lawmakers are asking Mattis if our U.S. troops are ready for Arctic warfare. I guess they're getting tired of thrashing around in all that desert country here. So basically, they want Mattis to submit a report to Congress on whether the U.S. military services have the equipment and training they need to survive in cold weather combat. And the proposal appeared in the House Armed Services Committee's latest version of the John S. McCain National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2019. And they're saying they want the report not later than 180 days after the enactment of the act on current cold weather capabilities. I don't think they need to worry. According to Al Gore, the Arctic is ice-free and snow is a thing of the past. On a more serious note, where are they planning on invading next? Antarctica? Actually, I know what they're thinking. There's going to be a war at the top of the world because they're starting to realize there's a lot of untapped oil down on the abyssal plains underneath the North Pole. And deep drilling rigs like the Deepwater Horizon are being developed to be able to reach it. And that's going to be the next fight. Now, common sense would say that those nations that are bordering the Arctic Sea, you just get their maximum and minimum longitudes, and you draw a line from that to the North Pole, cuts out a little pie slice shape, and that's their territorial waters. Or you could go by the International Convention and say it's all international waters except for strips 12 miles along each coast. But apparently the U.S. is already starting to try and take the position of we're going to control the Arctic Ocean and we're going to suck out all that oil. And of course, there are other countries that are not very cool with that, like Russia and China. And Canada's not too happy either because they're concerned they could get caught in the crossfire. So that's what this sudden focus on Arctic fighting is all about, is war way up there in the far, far north. Turning to domestic politics here, we're still seeing the fallout from the FISA application for Carter Page. It does reveal FBI collusion. More and more people who've actually read the unredacted report, they're dropping hints and saying that if the full report comes out, when the full report comes out, that it will be a shocker. And basically what we have already proves the bulk of the information that formed the basis for the FISA warrant applications was the Christopher Steele dossier of allegations about Donald Trump's activities in Russia. Now, the document was provided to the FBI by Christopher Steele. Actually, it was handed to the FBI by John McCain, who got it from Christopher Steele. Steele was hired during the 2016 presidential campaign by opposition research firm Fusion GPS, who was paid by Hillary Clinton's law firm Perkins Cole, who was paid by the Clinton campaign and the DNC. The allegations were scandalous and totally unverified, in violation of federal statutes and FISA court rules. In other words, the FBI just used opposition research, lies, paid for by the Democrats, as justification for government agencies spying on political opponents and other Americans. In another incredible coincidence, Fusion GPS had hired scholar and professor Nellie Orr as a paid Russian expert. Nellie Orr happens to be married to Bruce Orr, the Deputy Attorney General in the Justice Department at the time. And Bruce Orr is alleged to have passed his wife's anti-Trump research to the FBI. Now, he was demoted for failing to disclose not only his wife's employment with Fusion GPS, but also his own meetings with Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson. This is all starting to come on out. The FISA court was never told any of this. They were never supposed to know. None of us were ever supposed to know this. The idea was that Hillary Clinton was going to win and there would be no investigations. None of this would ever come out. That's why they hate Trump so much. Because without control of the White House, the machinery of Congress is starting to grind through and they're starting to hit pay dirt. So we have all these different scandals. The FISA court scandal, the DNC emails that proved the DNC stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders. We know the corporate media was assisting Hillary Clinton as much as they could. Hillary Clinton's private email server. It just goes on and on. But we were never supposed to know any of this. They were convinced Hillary Clinton was going to steal that White House, and now they're in a panic. Let's take a phone call here from Keith in Montana. Aloha, Keith. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, I had a different idea about this so-called Arctic and this cold weather thing. You know, in watching old war reels, I can still recall Germany as they rolled across Russia, traveling for days and getting locked down in embittered cold like that and losing, being frozen to death.
Yes.
That the war on the Russian front would be more of a scenario that I would envision.
It's entirely possible, but I think if it comes to war with Russia, I think they're going to go right to the missiles.
Yeah, well, you're right, but you know, it'll start out as a ground warrior. But like I say, when you got if you look at the Pentagon figures of the sedated soldiers and how many billions of dollars with the SSRIs and stuff, you don't have a fighting force today. You're right; it would go nuclear at some point. But it would start off as a ground war because no invasion ever. I was just going to say like that. You can't win a war from the air. It has to be a ground force. And so once the ground force starts losing, you know, boom.
Yep.
But I just thought I'd throw that in there with your humor with Al Gore.
All right. Anything else?
No, you and Claire have a good one over there, okay?
All right. Thanks. And we look forward to your broadcast over the weekend here on RBN.
All right, sounds great. Have a good one.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Yeah, that's Keith Rogers. He's a fellow host here on RBN. Longtime caller, longtime supporter of what really happened. He could well be right. The thinking may be a ground war against Russia, and they would want to avoid the mistakes made by both Napoleon and Hitler. I think it'd be a mistake. I think we're going to lose this one. I mean, those Russian winters are what defeated Napoleon and pretty much defeated the Nazis. By the time the United States actually came into World War II, the Nazis were already in retreat. They had lost Africa. They had to pull back from Russia. Hitler basically wanted to sue for peace and just keep everything where it was, where Germany still had Paris and so forth. But the war machine ground on. Now, here's an interesting little article. This came out of the New York Post talking about Trump's demise has been greatly exaggerated. And they're basically going over the last year and a half of Trump's time in office and pointing out how the corporate media has basically made a cottage industry out of writing Trump is doomed stories. And apparently it's one of the media's favorite stories. And apparently the corporate media think that if they cheer loudly enough for Trump to get 86th, it'll happen. Now, Trump's first term in office is more than a third over, and very serious corporate media pundits, prostitutes, and correspondents have been ushering him out of the door for the entire time, or at least trying to. And it turns out Trump doesn't pay a lot of attention to the usher pundits, nor should he. They're an annoyance at best. They don't have the means to actually get him out. They're just trying to get the American public used to that idea when the Democrats find a way to get him out of office. Oh, yes, we knew this was coming. You know, Trump was with the Playmate and Trump was with, what's her name, Stormy Daniels. And, oh, yeah, I've been hearing on the media he did all of these things. And so, yeah, I guess it's okay that we've suffered a coup d'etat in the United States of America. So apparently back on April 14th, the New Yorker ran a story, Michael Cohen, in the end stage of the Trump presidency. That's typical. That's typical. They just want to keep that idea out there. Okay, we're going to take another phone call here. Mark in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? Mike, you know, last night I was flipping the channels and I have Showtime temporarily, and I saw and I turn on Sum of All Fears, movie, Tom Clancy movie.
Yes.
I'd seen the movies years ago, but at the time I didn't really think much of it then because, you know, we weren't at this kind of a crossroads with Russia that we are now. And wow, that was one scary movie when you really think about it.
Yes.
Because, you know, did you ever see the movie?
Oh, yeah, I've seen the movie, and I've read the original book, too. In the original book, the enemy isn't Russia. It's somebody in the Middle East.
Okay. But anyway, I think the idea of making Russia the enemy was, they weren't really enemy. It was some European Nazis that were actually trying to get the United States and Russia to destroy each other.
Yes.
But, you know, when you really think about it, when you think about a possible false flag, when you think about the possibility that our own illustrious government, which I really don't think is our government, I think they're a globalist cartel, could light up one of our cities with a nuclear bomb and blame it on Russia, or they could bomb a Russian city and blame it on us. You know, anything like this could happen, and look out. And it wouldn't even have to be that serious. It wouldn't have to necessarily be a nuclear bomb. That was really excellent. I mean, the acting was pretty good, too, I thought.
Yeah,
And,
it's a good little movie. It doesn't come up to the book. I mean, if you look at Tom Clancy's original books before he started using co-writers and ghostwriters, they're very, very thick, and they're very hard to translate to the screen. They're so abbreviated. In this case, I would say go read the original books. And right now, I would recommend reading Red Storm Rising. There's a lot of good techno-thriller information in there about a possible conflict between the United States and Russia.
people better get it through their head. We think we could defeat Russia in a land war on let's say the borders of Russia. They've got to be crazy with the type of people we're getting in the military today, and like I said, they would have a hard time getting anybody into the military. There'd be no morale for that. The Russians have all the morale. They've been attacked. They know what it is. Almost 30 million people, Russians in World War II. They promised the next war will not be fought on Russian soil. And I believe they're going to back up that promise. They may not spend the kind of money that we spend on our the so-called defense budgets, really police the world, but they don't need it because they're basically interested in defending themselves.
Yes.
And they start a war with the boy, you're going to have a tiger. I mean, even if it's not nuclear, if it's conventional, I think if they wanted to, they could probably roll through Europe in a matter of days. But you know, the question is, would that be allowed, or would it then turn into nuclear or not?
I don't think Russia's interested in rolling through Europe. As you said, the reason they spend so much less than the Pentagon is they're not out there trying to conquer the world like the United States. They just want to defend their home and their allies, and that's basically it. Putin's got enough to deal with in Russia. He doesn't need to take on Europe's problems. Europe is hovering on bankruptcy. It's decaying. It's struggling under this open border situation. Europe is not a prize worth the effort to conquer. It's the same with the United States.
What they would probably do is destroy the NATO armies on their borders and then get a buffer zone, part of Poland and a couple other countries, to make sure that they don't have this kind of stuff on their borders again. Because that's one of the reasons why I watch, sometimes I watch these on the History Channel or whatever it's called, the American Hero Channel, when it show Operation Barbarossa.
Yep.
When Stalin, when they took the corner, and one of the reasons Stalin wanted to, I don't think Stalin was as dedicated to communists as people think he was. I think he was more of a Russian nationalist or Soviet nationalist because he was from Georgia, actually. He wanted a buffer zone right there. He didn't want a unfriendly country on his border. That's why he, was Poland and all, and Romania and all those other countries. That's traditionally Russia. I mean, they do not want this. They don't want this kind of a threat. And we keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. One of these days, look out. These madmen that run this country right now, these neocons, they don't know it. If they know history, it's a perverted sense of history.
Well, they're looking at, actions speak louder than words. I mean, when the Soviet Union finished coming apart, NATO and the United States made an agreement with Mikhail Gorbachev that NATO's would not extend any further east than its border at the time, which was the border of Germany, and immediately broke the promise, started grabbing more and more countries into NATO, moving closer and closer to Russia. Russia's looking at that and realizing, first of all, the U.S. doesn't keep their agreements, no surprise there. And second, they're pushing for a confrontation. It is the West that is the aggressor, not Russia in this case.
Funny in that movie too, like Jack Ryan character. He was basically in the beginning. He said, "You just the."
Okay, Mark, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these commercials.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Mark in North Carolina. And Mark, could you kind of pick up where you left off?
Yeah, I was talking about that movie, Some of All Fears.
Yes.
Tom Clancy book and the confrontation with Russia. And even in that movie, Ben Affleck playing the Jack Ryan character.
Yep.
Very young Jack Ryan. The hardline neocon type around the president, we're calling him a not Russia friendly, friendly towards that premier, who I'm assuming was meant to be Putin, because they showed the old Russian, fat old Russian dying. That was, I guess, was supposed to be Yeltsin, and then the other guy who took over, I guess, was supposed to be Vladimir Putin, and said, "Oh, he was just being friendly to." I'll say Putin, but it wasn't Putin. I forget his name. But this is almost. Tom Clancy was a brilliant guy, man. This is almost predictable. That's why I like to listen to on Infowars, Steve Pieczenik, because Pieczenik wrote a lot of the books with some of the books, like the ones not actually called by Tom Clancy, the ones that Tom Clancy shared. That was usually who he shared it with, Steve Pieczenik, who does have evidently experienced American intelligence. It wouldn't be bad if you could get him on your show, as a matter of fact.
All right, I might give that a try.
Because that's he pretty much described it, and we just got to be careful. We got to understand something too. The United States did not really win World War II. Russia took on 80% of the German divisions.
Yes.
And crushed them.
Yep.
They had a hard time in the beginning. It was a miracle that they went, but they actually destroyed, for all intents and purposes, they destroyed the heart and soul of the German army, including the 6th Army in Stalingrad.
Yep.
That was the same army rolled through Europe in a blitzkrieg, went into Paris. Well, that they destroyed it.
Yep.
People better understand that. People better realize you got a tiger now. You start with that tiger. That tiger's going to eat you. Plain and simple.
Well, there's another aspect here, and that is, if you go back to your Sun Tzu and the Art of War, in order to prevail in war, a leader has to have basically an army that believes in the moral rightness of the war, so they will fight fiercely and, if necessary, die in that war. And he has to have a civilian population that also believes in the moral rightness of the war, so they will bear the hardships war brings, even to the victorious side. The U.S. government has neither of those.
Yeah, well, of course, Russia's being threatened. We're right on their borders, threatening them.
Yep.
They're not threatening us. Oh, sure, the people are going to be riled up, and the troops are going to be totally loyal to Putin and to Russia. I don't think the troops are going to be loyal to. They'll be loyal to the United States, but not to the government that's sending them into all these wars now, and not even doing right by them, by a lot of these guys when they come back.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, got to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification. We have other callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you, so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now, and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And before we get back to the phones here, just a small observation. We can count on Hollywood to start demonizing Russians because, well, that's their job. And it's been announced that the next James Bond movie will feature a Russian villain. Yes, it's time we go back to those Russians to be our villains. Forget about the drug lords and the smugglers and the terrorists. You know, we're going to demonize the Russians here. All right, back to the phones here. Loomer in Northern California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good afternoon, Michael. I haven't heard anybody even consider the possibility that this winter warfare stuff may be in preparation for a two-front war on Russia. Think about it. If NATO attacked from Russia's west, and the United States and whatever allies they could scrape up attack from Russia's far east, and in a pincer effect, pincer move, and that would be one thing, and then the other thing I was thinking about also is that. I remember reading a news report here a while back, and it was actually a conference by the NATO commander. And they have been wargaming a war with Russia every which way but Sunday, trying to think. And the best of circumstances that NATO could even come up with was that if there was ever a war, Russia would have NATO completely defeated in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would not be surprised.
You could probably go back into the into the Wayback Machine, which is not too far back, and probably find that news report somewhere.
Well, let me go back to your theory about a pincer attack on Russia, because there's a couple of problems there. First of all, you're dividing your forces between East and West, and we don't have a lot of forces. The United States, we don't have a lot of people in uniform. We don't have a lot of weapons and munitions. I mean, they're trying to build them as fast as they can. But dividing our forces, I think, would be a mistake. The other part, of course, is looking at how large a country Russia is. That would be a lot of ground for the forces coming in from Siberia to have to cross through. To join with the forces coming in from Europe. And a lot of that land is just completely undeveloped. There are no highways or anything to follow. That's why Russia is offering free land to anybody who will go and live there and start setting up towns and communities and developing the place.
That sounds like someplace maybe I'd like to go.
Yeah, if I were younger, I might consider it. I mean, right now, Russia is bringing up these white farmers from South Africa who are fearing for their lives under the government's new policy of land confiscation and turning a blind eye to the violence being committed on the white farmers. And so, yeah, they're starting to go to Russia, and they're starting new farms on free land. It's a good deal.
Yes, it is, and praise the Lord that somebody is taking those people and rescuing them from the situation that they're being forced to live under.
I agree with you 100%. Okay, Loomer, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
If any American thinks they'll win in the Arctic against Russia, you got to be kidding me. Didn't we learn our lesson like in the Koreas? You know? I mean, come on now. Yeah, we didn't learn our lesson there with the cold weather, and in Nazi Germany didn't learn their lesson, right?
Right.
I mean, we're not made for that kind of weather. The Russians are. You know, it's a different climate, man. You know, and splitting up the forces, Mike. Everybody's forgetting about China. How are you going to split up your force against China? Come on now. An attack on Russia is against China because they'd be next. That's why they're linked to the hip now. You know, so ain't no way you're going to take Russia and both. Come on, you know, I mean, And let me tell you, Mike, if NATO goes into East Ukraine, it's on like Donkey Kong, and then you got to bring in Kaliningrad, where they got the Iskander M's with the tactical nuclear weapon optional. You know, that's kind of a pause for NATO at Kaliningrad. You know, but East Ukraine.
They were counting on Poroshenko to get Crimea back, and Poroshenko has failed. I think we're going to see another regime change happening in Ukraine very, very soon.
Well, you notice how great, like, they got the new bridge. They're finishing up the train part of it.
Yes.
And they got commerce in Crimea. That's open for business.
Yep.
You know?
They're now
That's
fully
open for
integrated
business.
into the Russian Union, or the Russian Federation, rather.
Yep. So anybody thinks that, I mean, yeah, we're not, there's no way, it'd be a nuclear, but there's no way we have the resources. We just don't have the resources to spread out across that far of a distance, you know? I don't care how many ships and airplanes we got. We just don't have that resources of manpower to bring in, you know, you got to bring in food and ammunition. That's a long haul.
Yeah.
That's a long haul.
The
and,
logistics
you know,
would be
that's
a
not including
nightmare.
the Chinese-
The logistics would be a nightmare. Those supply chains would be extremely vulnerable. If the U.S. were to invade Russia through Siberia, China could basically come across the border and flank the invasion force. So it's not a good plan.
Yeah, that's why Russia's got, you know, they got like, I think, 12,000 active tanks. I mean,
Yes.
how many does Germany have? Like 20? I think they only got 6 working airplanes. You know?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. After 17 years of war, all these countries involved in the U.S. coalitions, their weapons are worn out. Their stockpiles are drawn down. Something that is becoming painfully obvious today is the weapons coming off the assembly lines today are very fragile. They're very expensive, but they're very fragile. They're overly dependent on active defensive systems. And if those active defensive systems aren't working or are being jammed, these ships and planes are just sitting ducks.
And there's no, you know what? Russia's never going to invade Europe because we talked about this before. They ain't got nothing.
That's right.
They got welfare and it's a dying. The EU's a dying. That's why they're bringing their refugees. They're trying to prop up a dying system. You know, they got nothing. They don't make anything.
No, the refugees are actually part of what's dragging the system down. They're being brought on in as part of George Soros' dream of a multicultural world where we're all under one world government and enslaved to one private central bank for all of eternity. That's his plan.
But Mike, if you look at the east of Ukraine, see, they would never allow NATO forces to take that because there would be a launching pad for the gas pipelines. You know what I mean? So
yes.
If they cross into East Ukraine, it's on. I'm telling you, it's on like Donkey Kong. Just like Syria, that was Putin's red line, and East Ukraine is Russia's red line. Remember, Putin's got other people to answer to. Also, you know, he's got his own deep state. You know, but at least he's in control of it. But he still has. He's a moderate. People don't realize Putin's moderate.
Yes.
You know, there's
you know,
people.
If he gets replaced with a hardliner, you know, things could get really, really ugly. And right now, the U.S. is in Russia, covertly funding opposition, trying to stir up trouble. They could succeed in bringing Putin down, and the wrong guy could get in to replace him. You know, a real hardliner, and there are hardliners still in the Russian government, and then we'd have a hot war on our hands.
And Mike, one more last thing. I just want to say, is Putin a strong man? Sure, but he fixed that country up. It was looted, dilapidated, and he really fixed that place up. And does it need improvement? Sure. Do we? Hell yeah. But I mean, you know, the guy's not as, you know, just like Saddam Hussein, they made him out to be something more than he was, and Assad. It's all BS.
Putin was able.
Look at your own government.
Putin was able to fix up Russia because he basically did the same thing the Nazis did in Germany. Took control of the economy, took it away from the private central bankers. And so Russia's economy is doing very, very well because Russia's public currency is being handled as a public utility rather than a privatized for-profit scam like it is here in the United States.
Putin, buy gold, baby, buy gold, Putin. All right, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, he's definitely doing that. All right, thanks a lot for the phone call. The phone lines are empty. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who have just now rejoined the network. Now, on the front of whatreallyhappened.com, you're going to see this interesting little video, and it basically documents Jim Jordan in a hearing questioning Robert Mueller regarding the IRS scandal. And this is all the way back under Obama, where the IRS was targeting conservative groups, blocking their 501c3s, asking for inappropriate information, just harassing them in general. And Jim Jordan asks Mueller, well, how many people there's been no progress into this investigation into the IRS. How many people are working on it? And Mueller says, I don't really know. And Jim Jordan says, well, who's in charge of the investigation? And Mueller again says, I don't really know. I haven't had a recent briefing. And Jim Jordan presses on him, and Mueller just gets really, really nervous and basically turns red over the fact that he doesn't really know. And at that time, he was in a position where he was supposed to know. Remember how the Wall Street Journal came out with a story a little while ago that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly would be leaving the Trump administration at the 1-year anniversary of his taking the job? The White House has now announced that that's just more fake news, that John Kelly is staying on, and that sometimes they'll have disagreements, but overall they enjoy working with each other. All right, we're going to take another phone call. David in San Francisco. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, howdy, Michael. Yeah, a couple of things. You were talking about the refugees a couple of minutes ago in Europe.
Yep.
And for the most part, I agreed. Yeah, for the most part, I agreed with you and the other caller. Russia has very little desire to try to invade. They've got way too much territory already. But the one thing I disagree with you on is the refugees are being caused by old money's bad investments. So I've talked to you before about how Syria, the ISIS invasion of Syria, has to do with Genie Oil and the fracking of the Holy Land. That Dick Cheney and his company, Genie Oil and Gas, has the drilling rights, the fracking rights to the Golan Heights.
Yes.
They wanted to, they still want to run a pipeline across Syria's front yard, across Turkey, and then up into Europe, where they'd sell that natural gas. And their competition, of course, is Russia. But at the same time, they're basically stealing what used to be a part of Syria, the Golan Heights. Then they want to steal the territory of Syria to run their pipeline. And so ISIS is simply a private army, and all of those refugees that are flooding into Europe are directly caused by Dick Cheney and Genie Oil. So
well, that's certainly a major part of it. On the other hand, we know that George Soros organizations, NGOs, were down there in Syria saying, you'll be safe in Europe, you'll get free stuff in Europe, openly, basically courting people to get out of Syria. And yes, the wars are definitely a problem, and we're all told that these are war refugees. But there is absolutely no question that George Soros and his foundation are working to flood Europe with all these refugees. I mean, look at all the refugees coming up from Africa. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have an 8-year-long war down there in the countries where the African refugees are coming from. And of course, we've got refugees coming here to the United States along with a flood of illegal immigrants.
Well, I don't know what George Soros Foundation, he's probably got about 80 or 100 different nonprofits, and you realize that George Soros was a refugee when he was a child, right? He was
he helped the Nazis hunt down his fellow Jews, and that's where he made his early money.
I've heard that, and he was orphaned by the Nazis and was basically captured by them, and became an assistant to one of those gout leaders or whatever. Yeah, George Soros has got a strange past, and out here in San Francisco, we've got Bill Graham, the old music promoter. He also had, the similar. He was orphaned, had to make his way through Nazi lines, and then made his way over to America. And as far as I can tell, George Soros hasn't made any alliances with Genie Oil and Gas. So I don't think that he's in league with them. But he probably has some kind of desire to protect refugees.
He's taking advantage of the situation. Given again elements of his past, I don't think he's sympathetic to the plight of the refugees, because if you look at what's actually happening when the refugees get to Europe, it's not a pleasant experience. It's not turning out positive for the vast majority of them. You're getting all these criminals into Europe, and George Soros is oblivious to the harm that he is causing. And that tells us basically he's not concerned with, how ordinary humans are affected by the games that he's playing. So anyway, I understand where you're coming from. And I thank you for the phone call. And we're going to switch over to Mo in Florida. Aloha, Mo. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Appreciate you taking my call. I just, that old saying, "Cui bono," who benefits.
Yes.
To me, you're one of the few people that woke me up to this, but, I think this whole Zionist, neocon thing, when you look back at Netanyahu and he's meeting with this Rabbi Schneerson, the one who was on, you can watch a video where he's telling him to hurry up and bring on the Messiah, the what do they call it? I forget the Jewish, whatever. They believe the Messiah is going to come. And they're going to use the goyim as fodder. I mean, it's in their Talmud.
Yes.
That I think this whole war. Obviously, World War I, World War II. We know the Rothschilds back both sides. You were very clear on that, and woke me up to that. But when you look into this, who cares? They don't care how many goyim die in a nuclear war or whatever, because they have this messianic thing that the Messiah is going to return to the Dome of the Rock, and they're going to rule the world, and we're just going to be the little goyim serfs. I mean, isn't that what this is about? I mean, I think it's crazy.
That's the religious angle for it. From a geopolitical point of view, I think Israel would be perfectly. I mean, Israel right now is in the business of using one country to smash another country. And if they do it long enough all over the world, eventually all countries are smashed and are weaker than Israel, and Israel functionally is ruling the world. We already did it to Iraq. They're trying to get ready to do it to Iran. Israel, I think, would be perfectly happy if the United States and Russia destroyed each other in a mutual nuclear exchange, because especially if it would also involve China, that would basically clear the way for Israel to complete the Eretz Israel project and declare itself capital of the world. There's been a lot of talk about when the New World Order is finally established, its capital will be in Jerusalem.
Yeah, exactly. I think this. I agree with you totally. I think Jared Kushner is, the whole thing about him, Bibi Netanyahu sleeping in his bed when he visits, and 666 on his building number, and I think they're grooming him as the next freaking Messiah. I know that's out there. But I've heard that for some pretty smart people, and you kind of like.
Well, you don't groom a Messiah by associating 666 with them.
I don't know.
Optics.
The number of his building is kind of weird, but I guess my point is that he's got Trump's ear, and the Zionists love Kushner, and they love Trump, and it's just like this is so obvious. It's almost like 9/11. When you saw Building 7 come down. Anybody that watched that doesn't know that was a controlled demolition is just brain dead or cognitive dissonance. And I think it's the same thing with this whole thing. I think the Zionist agenda, they're freaking, they have a messianic death wish, but they really honestly must think that they're the chosen ones.
Absolutely. Anyway, Mo, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with another phone call after these few words.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat, very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington, too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? I've always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. And I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the seven seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate. I want to do.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're going to go back to the phones to Vivian in Canada. Aloha, Vivian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike, and thank you for taking my call. One of your previous callers was referring to what the ancient Hebrews would have called the Mashiach. And the Mashiach actually means the anointed one,
yes,
which would be the king. So it's not necessarily a spiritual thing, except the thing that we tend to forget is that Judaism was taken over by the atheist Zionist Bolsheviks. So it's basically a politicization of Judaism, just as Islam has been politicized by many of the purported terrorists. So there are multiple layers there, and the politicization of each of the religions in order to appropriate the beliefs of the people within those religions and make them enemies of one another, when in actual fact, many of them feel a great deal of affinity with one another. That's the people. Now, the political issue, as for Soros being an orphan, no, his father is the one who arranged for his Christian godfather, which is something many Jews used to do prior to the Second World War. The children of wealthy families, Jewish children, were often given godfathers that were Christian in order to protect them.
Yes.
And so it was Soros' grandfather who arranged for Soros at 14 to go out and identify. And what he probably did is he identified the wealthy anti-Zionists who had no reason to leave the comforts of Europe and go off to the swampland or the dry lands of Palestine. So this notion that, and Soros is not even his real name. In fact, if you look at the Catholic Church, the same thing occurred. The most recent one that was very influential on one of the previous, not the one who's serving now or even Ratzinger, but the one before him, I think he was Polish. Lustiger, Lustiger, was actually a Jew adopted by a French Christian family, if indeed they were Christians, and he was raised to become a cardinal and influenced the Catholic Church significantly through the Polish Pope. So the political Zionism, and a lot of Jews are victims of it, and a lot of them are beginning to realize it, is actually the culprit here. So these references to ancient text that referred to Goyim and, the misunderstanding of Mashiach, which in Arabic becomes Masih and thus eventually becomes our Messiah, was never initially the God from heaven descended to earth. In fact, the anointment...
Jesus wasn't considered divine until after the Council of Nicaea. So that would absolutely fit in with the fact that he was seen as a leader, a ruler, a teacher, and they, if he was anointed, they'd call him the Messiah, but it wasn't a title of divinity. Jesus wasn't considered divine until they voted him in.
You're right. That's correct. In fact, at the time, there were multiple men who claimed to be the Mashiach who was going to save the Judeans from the Roman occupation, which, as you know, was excessively brutal.
Yes.
But Bar Kokhba was another man who claimed to be a Messiah. And because he was such a successful political leader, once Flavius, who used to be a Jewish general, betrayed them and went over to the Roman side and recorded or wrote his version or the Roman version of the Jewish-Roman wars, Bar Kokhba was obviously betrayed and killed. But he was actually the most effective Mashiach. In fact, in ancient times, they even referred to Cyrus the Great, the Persian Achaemenid, who, when he liberated the Judean captives in Babylon and told them to go back and rebuild their temple, many of the Jews referred to him as the Mashiach because he was so humane and allowed them to go back and follow their religion. He never imposed, whatever God he believed in, Zoroaster, I believe, he never imposed that upon any of the nations. One other comment I have to make that is not really relevant to today's discussion is the notion of Alexander the Great. I think people keep forgetting that Alexander's father, Philip, the Macedonian, is the one who trained that brilliant army that was ultimately led by Alexander, who many people believe was the one who murdered Philip and then took over the army. Furthermore, the roads that he took in order to conquer the great empire was the one built by both Cyrus the Great as well as further descendant.
Vivian, I congratulate you on your grasp of history, but we're going to have to let you go for commercial break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we are roughly 3 months away from the midterm elections, and everybody's out there campaigning. Donald Trump is flying around the country, lending his support to various Republican candidates. Hillary Clinton has waded into this through her political organization Onward Together. She's donated $5,000 to 19 different House candidates who are running to unseat incumbent Republicans in districts she won in the 2016 presidential election or stole. So again, their goal is to flip the House to Democratic control, at which point Devin Nunes would lose his chairmanship to Adam Schiff. And Adam Schiff could be counted on to just shut down all these investigations into the Department of Justice and the FBI and everything all else and protect that deep state here. Now, Bill Kristol, who was editor-in-chief of the Weekly Standard, is talking about running for president in 2020. Says he may step into the primary battle against Donald Trump. And he says right now he doesn't have any plans to run, but he refuses to rule it out. So we'll see what happens there. Now, Devin Nunes is seriously weighing legal action against Twitter for shadow banning. And because that shadow banning targets conservatives. Now, this is a process which hides contents or accounts using special algorithms that make the content or accounts harder to find or view. And during an interview on Fox News, Nunes reported he's even been a victim of the practice that appears to bias toward shadow banning conservatives, particularly Republican members of the House Freedom Caucus. None of this comes as any surprise. And of course, the leftists are going to begin harping about the First Amendment. But from their point of view, the Constitution is only something they like when it protects their point of view. And those gosh darn conservatives and you know, truth tellers, they shouldn't be allowed to have freedom of speech. Okay, apparently there is another rally being planned up in Portland, a pro-Trump rally, and Antifa is planning a direct confrontation. This is going to happen Saturday. And apparently they're even talking about violence. And again, brown shirt tactics. Brown shirt tactics. Now, maybe they'll be deterred by a recent Ninth Circuit Court decision. All of a sudden, the Ninth Circuit Court is coming out with some interesting decisions. And it goes back to the Trump rally in San Jose, California in June of 2016. And it was a complete and total disgrace because hordes of intolerant liberals just assaulted people. They assaulted the Trump supporters and the Trump fan. Punches were thrown, eggs were thrown. Basically, the attitude was, if they're not supporting Hillary Clinton, beat them up. This is the left. This is how they are: intolerant, insufferable, condescending, unhinged, and violent. Well, the San Jose police apparently actually herded the Trump supporters into this confrontation and then stood down. And one of the Trump supporters, Juan Hernandez, filed a lawsuit against the San Jose Police Department for its behavior, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that, yeah, he has a right to sue. That the evidence from the witnesses who were there makes it very clear. The police, at the very least, lost control of the situation, but the police did appear to literally herd and guide the Trump supporters into contact with the violent mob, and then basically stood back. Now, there were confrontations. Some of the police did get hurt, but it was very obvious they were not trying to tamp this down. They tried to fan it up. If they'd really been wanting to avoid violence, the police would have put themselves between the Trump group and the other group and just said, everybody stay on your own side of the street. That's not what happened here. Apparently, the publisher of the New York Times had a private meeting with President Trump on July 20th. It was supposed to be off the record, in which the publisher warned Trump about deeply troubling anti-press rhetoric. This is coming from New York Times publisher A.G. Sulzberger, and he warned Trump that the constant attacks on the news media, particularly in characterizing reporters and journalists as the enemy of the people, will contribute to increased threats of violence against those workers who exercise their right to free speech encoded into the U.S. Constitution. Well, the reason people are upset with the New York Times is because free speech was not intended to protect lies. And certainly the attitude coming out of Sulzberger is, we have a right under the Constitution to come on out and publish all kinds of fake news about the president, but the president doesn't have a right to come back and criticize us for it. Anyway, Trump made the conversation public, so it's no longer off the record here. You know, it must be nice to be in a politician's family here, because former Vice President Joe Biden's niece basically pled guilty on a charge of committing $110,000 in credit card fraud at a New York City store. She got 2 years probation for it. That's it. Talk about your basic wrist slap. All right, turning to the economic news, China's oil futures contracts are beginning to put pressure on the petrodollar. This is China's oil future contract denominated in the yuan. And it's one of the many little details that basically came out of the 2008 financial meltdown. They're all starting to converge, and one of the biggest is the Chinese oil futures contract, and it's growing in such a way that by the year's end, at the current pace of growth, this contract will present a real challenge to the petrodollar. And remember, that petrodollar lies at the heart of the U.S. attempt to dominate the world militarily, to force the world back to Bretton Woods, where everybody's commerce goes through the U.S. dollar and the U.S.-controlled SWIFT system, so the U.S. can rule the world with weaponized money. When the rest of the world drops the U.S. dollar, when they dump their U.S. treasuries, the party will be over, because there is nothing in the United States to support a viable economy. Our manufacturing is still tremendously reduced from what it was at the height of our manufacturing power. Nobody wants our GMO agriculture. The U.S. is a failed state. It's already failed. Look at the government. There's so much infighting going on. The government isn't actually doing their job. They're not enforcing the borders. They're not enforcing safety in food and medicine. They weren't enforcing safety at the Deepwater Horizon. They're not looking out for Wall Street mischief like Bernie Madoff. For all intents and purposes, the government is already broken. It's non-functional. Over in Iran, they're looking at the possibility of barter to get around the U.S. banking sanctions, and they're in discussions with Sri Lanka for an oil for tea trade. Sri Lanka will basically get oil from Iran, and they'll pay for it directly with gold. And this would not only allow Iran to avoid having to go through the banking system, but could be a boost for their struggling currency. Iran has been importing gold recently already, trying to prop the rial back up. Now, over at Facebook and Twitter, their shares continue to decline amid the public outcry over privacy concerns and censorship. So they're actually in trouble over there. And again, there are allegations that top executives at Facebook, at least, sold off a lot of their stock before the big drop. So they knew it was coming. Technically, that's insider trading. And, excuse me just a second. Okay. So basically, stocks, bonds, and the dollar dumped on the worst fangover, is what they're calling it, in 30 months. A lot of people are saying the tech rally may actually be over. And one reason for that is simply that we consumers are all tapped out. And you can tell that by looking, first of all, home sales are declining. Not just here in the U.S., all over the world. Car sales are declining despite the really wonderful deals that are out there. The retail apocalypse continues. They're just trying to blame it all on Amazon, but Amazon, their share of the retail market is single digits. The American people have run out of money. We can't buy these things anymore. The consumer economy was really the foundation of much of the U.S. economy. I know there's the military-industrial complex economy, but the consumer ability to spend propped up retail, warehousing, transportation, manufacturing. It's all starting to crack and crumble here. The European Union has now extended the sanction list related to reunification of Crimea with Russia and construction of the bridge across the Kerch Strait. 6 more Russian companies are hit by sanctions, according to the official journal of the EU. And the sanctions were introduced against Institute Giprostrojmost, Mostos Rest, VAD, Strojgazmontaj, Strojgazmontaj Most, and Zali Shipyard. And these measures come into force basically today. Now, Russia is not going to give Crimea back. It would be seen as an incredible sign of weakness. And more importantly, Russia, of course, is very angry at the continued allegations that they somehow stole Crimea when that is not what happened. Following the U.S.-backed coup d'etat that ousted the legitimate government of Yanukovych and installed President Chocolate, the Crimeans held a referendum to secede, which is their right under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They then held a second referendum to merge with the Russian republics. That's what happened. And now the integration with the Russian republics is pretty much complete. They're all hooked up. They're plugged into the economy. They've got that brand new bridge. It's a done deal. Russia's not going to go back on that. Russia, probably like Iran, is looking for a way to conduct business without having to go through the United States. We had a caller here the other day who really said it. There's a big wide world out there that is not the United States and not the EU. And they could just all agree to do business with each other and just let the EU and the United States stagnate, which is exactly what is going to happen. Because Donald Trump, with all of these sanctions and tariffs, he's isolating us from the rest of the world. Not just economically, but politically. These other countries are getting tired of being bullied by the United States. Now, here's a good example of what I mean by the consumer economy is falling. And it's a story about an injured Amazon worker, Shannon Allen. And she was working in the DFW 7 Fulfillment Center in Hazlet, Texas. And she says the conditions were brutal, authoritarian-style surveillance of workers, and management demands to maintain very hectic rates of speed that lives to accidents. And apparently she was injured twice at the same workstation. And she was basically let go and faces homelessness. There are people working at Amazon who are having to live out there in their cars because they can't afford rent. Just like there are people who work at Google, people who actually have a full-time job at Google, and they're still living in their cars. How is this in any way, shape, or form a good economy or a great nation? When you have these ultra-billionaires in their palaces, and the people who worked to make them billionaires are living in cars or worse. The wealth inequality is a big problem in this country. And I'm not talking about the possibility of a revolution, although that's obviously what happened in France. I'm talking about the fact that with all the money concentrated at the very top, the economy is going to break down. The economy needs a recycling system where money that is accumulated at the top by the wealthy is siphoned off and finds its way back down to the bottom in decent wages and salaries so it can be pumped back into the economy to keep it going. Now, before corruption ruled the earth, the way it worked was taxation on the wealthy, taxation on companies. But that has now shifted. The tax burden has been shifted to ordinary working people. The ultra-wealthy got a huge tax break from Trump. Businesses got a huge tax break from Trump. And the burden is now falling on the American people. Wages and salaries are being pushed downward. We've got companies out there screaming about a $15 minimum wage and how it's going to ruin them. I might have to sell one of my yachts if I give up that $15 an hour. You know, I deserve that yacht. You have no idea how hard all those other people worked to buy me that yacht. Over in Great Britain, Matteo Salvini, who's Italy's interior minister and leader of the anti-immigrant Lega Nord, is sounding a warning to Theresa May, claiming that Brussels is trying to swindle London in their Brexit negotiations and saying that the best way out is a no-deal Brexit, which some parts of the British government are already preparing for. They're stockpiling certain needed items, food, medicine, and so forth. And Salvini is urging Theresa May, just pull out of the talks, because on some principles there's no need to be flexible. and you shouldn't be going backwards. Now, the problem, of course, is that Theresa May is a closet Remainer. She wants to find a way for Brexit to exist in name only. Oh yes, we're a free Great Britain again here, and pay no attention to the rattling of our chains still holding us to Europe. That's her agenda. Apparently, Peter Mendelsohn came out today with a comment attacking Brextremists as nationalists who hate foreigners and claims they are not patriots if they support leaving the EU. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And in the backlash from the Chequers deal, which was Theresa May, that was her deal on Brexit, which just seemed to be a giveaway of everything that the EU wanted. It's renewed support for UKIP. And all of a sudden, the Independence Party is making a comeback. And the British people are very angry. They're feeling like they're being betrayed. They're feeling like their vote, what they wanted, is being ignored. And it is. it is. That's what's going on here. Now, support for Macron and Merkel's coalitions have plunged to record new lows according to polls. And it's basically dissatisfaction with all of these pro-open border governments. In fact, over in France, there's a massive petition drive demanding the impeachment of President. They're citing this Benalla-gate as the cause, but I'm sure what's fueling it is the migration. And maybe Macron is using Benalla-gate as a distraction, a media distraction, to get people to stop talking about the refugee problem. But apparently it has to do with a former security aide who might have been Macron's lover. And there was a video of the security aide manhandling a May Day demonstrator in Paris, which is being blown up a little bit. And we know media distractions are common. In fact, over the commercial break, I was looking at Fox News, and their idea of a big story coming up on the top of the hour was how 2 guys stole a shark from an aquarium. They don't want to talk about Yemen. They don't want to talk about what's going on inside the federal government. They don't want to talk about the economy. Let's talk about sharks. We're going to jump the shark here. Oh, yes, here we've got video of the shark. Over in Spain, as you know, Spain kind of opened up its doors to migrants coming across the Mediterranean when Italy said, we've already got too many and we're going to close the ports. And probably Spain is wishing they hadn't done that, because now they are just pouring on in. And Spain's Interior Ministry, headed by Fernando Grande Marlaska, has had to approve several emergency contracts to establish a unit based in the Bay of Algeciras, Cadiz, to assist illegal immigrants on arrival. This is going to cost the Spanish taxpayer millions and millions. In fact, 3.5 million euros to pay for the migrant emergency they themselves created. Getting on back to the Skripal case, they're finally admitting that neither German nor British intelligence can prove Russia had anything to do with whatever it is that happened to Sergei Skripal and his daughter. And they're now being held in the British equivalent of the witness protection system. So they can't talk to anybody. I still think they had seafood poisoning. I think that's what happened. All right, we're going to take a break. Back with Hour 3 after these few words.
There is an ongoing war right here in America. Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, as you probably have heard in the past, I'm not happy with Spectrum, who is our cable TV and internet provider. They took over from Oceanic Time Warner. And we're paying for 300 megabits per second download speed. Uploads are always slower. It's biased that way. For all the providers are the same way. And I've never gotten it. And a lot of people are starting to complain. And you probably recall that New York actually sued Spectrum for false advertising, for advertising these high internet speeds into the home and charging for them, but failing to deliver. Well, apparently New York regulators have had enough. And they've given Charter Communications 60 days to come up with a plan to exit the state. New York wants a different cable franchise in there. Now, Charter markets its products under the Spectrum banner, and it's the state's leading cable, internet, and telephone provider. But the State Public Service Commission has given the company its walking papers, accusing Charter of failing to live up to its promise to expand high-speed internet offerings in less densely populated areas of the state. So I'm glad that somebody is standing up to these cable companies. And again, a lot of people are starting to cut that cable in favor of on-demand streaming. So they're not paying for TV shows they don't watch, like everything that's on CNN. And if we could find a different way to connect to the internet, we'd probably end our relationship with Spectrum as well, because of the quality of the internet service. The speed is just not there. All right, if you've been watching the news, you probably know there are major wildfires all over our country, from Texas to Oregon. And 5 people are now known to be dead, 2 of them children, 17 missing, tens of thousands evacuated as the Carr Fire, C-A-R-R, destroys 84,000 acres, an area 3 times bigger than the city of San Francisco. And the fire is being fed by strong winds. Only 5% of the blaze is contained. And that's always a big situation. When you've got all that dry brush and a heavy wind, those fires can get out of control. Now, of course, the global warming people are out there screaming that, see, this proves the earth is warming, and these are the horrible dangers we face if we don't all bow down and worship Al Gore. But what's really going on here is the neglect of our nation is coming back to haunt us. Because a normal part of the state government's work is to maintain what are called fire breaks. These are dirt roads that are bulldozed through the forests at regular intervals. And basically they're placed so that fire comes up to one side and stops. But because states are broke and in debt, the budgets for maintaining the fire breaks have been cut in many states. And so the brush is just growing wild. The fire breaks are now overgrown and they no longer work. So that's really what's going on here. For those of you with a more religious orientation, doesn't it look like somebody up in the sky is punishing the United States for all these wars that we're waging on all these other countries? Alrighty, now down in Florida, as you know, they passed this law, the Risk Protection Order Act, and it was signed by Rick Scott, who's viewed as rather totalitarian. And this law basically allows a judge and other parties in the government to remove weapons from gun owners who have been deemed by a judge to possibly be a threat to themselves or others. Now, it doesn't mean they've done anything. Doesn't mean they've committed a crime. It's just a judge says, you know, this person might be a danger. We're going to take their guns away, at least temporarily. And apparently more than 450 people in the state of Florida have already been ordered to give up their guns by the State Department. Now, I would be more or less in line that somebody who's on prescription antidepressants have limited access to firearms because of the well-documented link between these medications and acts of violence, including suicide and mass shootings. But I think once somebody got off the antidepressants, they should get their guns back. And I know I'm going to get a lot of call from gun rights people saying you can't give in on an inch, but I think there's a little common sense here because we have to address the issue of prescription antidepressants and mass shootings so that the mass shootings decline and the gun grabbers don't have them to use against Second Amendment supporters. All right, so anyway, so they're all over Florida in Broward County doing risk assessments. Now, the other direction, of course, has got everybody up in arms, and that is that owing to a recent court settlement, as of midnight tonight, you will be able to download 3D printer data files for plastic guns. The first one was called the Liberator. It's a very simple one-shot pistol. It's named for the very simple one-shot pistols that were airdropped to resistance fighters behind enemy lines in World War II. And the plan there was you'd take this one pistol, you'd kill a German guard or soldier, you'd take their superior weapons, and then you'd be off and running. And that's the origin of the name. And so a lot of people are very concerned about this. Some states have gone to the courts trying to block access to the website in their state. And the website, by the way, is called Defense Distributed. But the cat is out of the bag because before Defense Distributed was shut down, a lot of people downloaded these plans for all the different guns. There's the Liberator, there's even an AR-15, and they're all plastic except for the firing pin, because apparently there is a law that all guns have to have at least one metal part, so they'll set off the metal detectors at airports. And the metal part is the firing pin, and it's a hardware store nail. That's it. Now, this completely changes the dynamics. And the gun grabbers are up in arms. They're screaming about this. And this may force a change in law enforcement, where instead of criminalizing the possession of an object, you go back to criminalizing the behavior. Because you know that criminals are certainly going to have the $10,000 it takes to get the 3D printing machine, and they'll print up these guns, they'll use them, they'll dispose of them. But we've got all this supposed amazing surveillance all over the place. They just caught the shark napping. Let's go back to punishing the criminals for their crimes, because we've gone way too far down the path of punishing them for the possession of an object. Now, Trump apparently is also having some concerns about it. He's saying that 3D printed guns doesn't seem to make much sense. And he's talking about seeing them being sold to the public. Well, the public aren't buying them. The public are making them. But as I said, the cat is out of the bag. The plans are already out there on the internet. And there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. All right, let's take a phone call from Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Yeah, I have a couple of questions on the same subject, but I need you to be honest and truthful, okay? My questions are these. Was Adolf Hitler a nut, a politician, a businessman, or all the above? That's the first one.
Probably all the above, along with being a failed artist.
Okay, but who was pulling the strings? Because he had a lot of opportunities to win the war in Dunkirk. He could have marched straight to Moscow. He had opportunities to win the war. Who was pulling the strings? Was it President Bush, Joe Kennedy? Who was pulling the strings?
Hang on, Tony. Let me answer your question. He couldn't have marched straight to Moscow. The winter stopped him. We had that conversation earlier in the program. The reality is that Nazi Germany did not actually have plans initially to go into Great Britain. They basically wanted to bring all of Europe under the Nazi banner, and their plan was to stop. It wasn't until that Great Britain basically declared war on Germany that they then had to go with the Battle of Britain, which they lost that one as well.
Yeah, but he would have won. If he would have taken Dunkirk, he would have won the war, Mike. Right?
Well, again, as I said, his idea of winning the war was consolidating all of Europe under Nazi Germany's flag. He wasn't interested initially in Great Britain. Germany, basically Great Britain declared war on Germany, and that's when hostilities broke out. So from the Nazis' point of view, once they marched into Paris, they had won pretty much what they wanted. Then, of course, they had setbacks in the Africa Corps, and certainly going into Russia. And by the time the United States came into the war, really the heart of the German army had already been wiped out at Stalingrad. And it was just a case of pushing them back until finally Hitler either committed suicide or he shot a double and fled to South America. And Admiral Dönitz, who'd been in command of the U-boat force, temporarily took over as Führer to basically go through the process of surrender.
So no big banker was pulling the strings, in other words.
Oh, there were a lot of big bankers pulling his strings, and a lot of them were right here in the United States. You had banks, investors like Brown Brothers Harriman in New York, bankrolled Hitler's rise to power. They were expecting to make a lot of money off of this guy. And, of course, as soon as war broke out between the U.S. and Germany, Roosevelt hit all of these U.S. bankers with the Trading with the Enemies Act, partly as revenge for that attempted coup d'etat that was stopped by Major General Smedley Butler.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open. All righty. Now then, over at Twitter, apparently not having realized there's a connection between censorship and their declining user base and stock price, they've basically hired a new hate speech chief. And this person, Dr. Rebecca Tromble, an assistant professor of political science at Leiden University, is basically going to help Twitter develop algorithms to understand the difference between intolerant discourse such as hate speech and disagreement or incivility. The problem is she is a hardcore Trump-hating leftist, and now she is in charge of shaping the algorithm which will determine what speech is allowed and what speech is banned on the platform. So Twitter remains totally useless. Although, as somebody emailed me yesterday, if Twitter were to go away, what would Donald Trump do? All righty. Now, here's a good example of selective filtering going on. Apparently, the leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria is still on YouTube. No blocking, no limits, no pushdowns, nothing like that. The Saudi cleric leader of Al-Nusra Front, Abdullah al-Muhaisini, still has his own channel up and running on YouTube. And it points out that terrorists are being given a free pass by Western governments and the powers that be. Meanwhile, of course, people who question the wisdom of the war, they're being silenced. So, yeah. The current corporate social media is rapidly becoming useless. I noticed that Real Video is up and running. I'm going to try and get to installing that this afternoon in my copious amounts of free time, because I'm still getting complaints about YouTube. Now, Amazon, despite the recent embarrassment where somebody did a test of a facial recognition system. And they scanned all the faces of the members of Congress and used facial recognition against a database of known criminals, and they got 28 matches. And no, these members of Congress were not those criminals. Members of Congress are criminals in general, but they were false positives. And despite this, Amazon says they're going to continue selling that same system to police. Now, here is the problem. How many innocent Americans are going to be inconvenienced, possibly arrested, because of this technology's lack of reliability? Remember the story we did last week about this woman where a cop found her vitamin pills in the car, said, "I think these are drugs." He did a field test with a test kit notorious for false positives, got the false positives, and she sat in jail for 5 months until the police lab finally got around to verifying that, yes, indeed, those were just vitamin pills. Along with police brutality and the abuse of civil forfeiture, police are becoming overly dependent on the tech. They believe what these systems are telling them. They're not thinking for themselves anymore. That's a dangerous situation. When you surrender your own intellectual process to a device, you lose some part of you that makes you a human being, and you become just a tool. Now, the U.S. Department of Defense has signed an $885 million artificial intelligence contract with Booz Allen. And the Department of Defense is saying they're going to use this artificial intelligence system to automate mundane tasks and augment the work of military members. Now, the technology will allow the Defense Department to better compete with nations including China and Russia. Now, here's my concern, aside from the fact that it's another $1 billion that could easily turn into a boondoggle project. We ran a story last week about how there is actually a diagnostic system in use in hospitals that uses IBM's Watson, and it turned out to be producing faulty diagnoses and bad recommendations. And when they investigated, when IBM investigated, they discovered the problem was that because of patient privacy laws in this country, they couldn't get actual real patient data to teach the AI with. So they basically simulated a whole bunch of patient files. And the AI learned what it knows about medicine from these simulated files, which turned out to be wrong. So how are they going to train this AI at the Department of Defense? I mean, are we really that close to Skynet? Over in Switzerland, Switzerland's top cop, if you will, says that Microsoft has gone way too far in abusing people's privacy. And the Federal Commissioner for Data Protection, Jean-Philippe Walter, told Le Temps on Sunday that he was prepared to take Microsoft to court if it does not alter its privacy policy for Windows 10. And the complaint basically is the installation procedure does not properly inform users about the scope of the default settings. When you install Windows 10, by default, everything is turned on. All the surveillance is turned on. And there are a couple of places where you could turn it off. One system, you really got to dig down deep into the machine. But basically, Walter is saying that they might go as far as banning the sale of Windows 10 in Switzerland. Now, we have another link at the website, 6 free tools that stop Windows 10 from spying on everything that you do. And I think it's a good idea. Not that we're doing anything bad, but we do have a right to privacy. All right, we're going to be right back after these commercials.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network, thank you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment getting...
And aloha America, welcome back to our show here. And once again, the postal address, if you can support Republic Broadcasting, we need your help. We really do. Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Road, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. If you want to call in with a debit or credit card donation or to pledge to be a recurring subscriber, that number is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. Looking at my email here, I just got a note here. Please publicize that many states are confiscating guns from people who register for legal medical cannabis. Hawaii is one. Yes, we are. Sorry. And when people vote to involve the government in their personal lives, bad things happen. Well, we didn't actually vote to involve the government in our personal lives. The government just came on in and said, we're going to involve ourselves in your lives to justify higher taxes, and because we've got nothing better to do, we have to prove how important we are. So no collecting raindrops on your own property. And getting on back to the medical marijuana, I don't agree with that one. People who smoke marijuana do not become violent. Quite the contrary. They just mellow out and sit. They have too much, they fall asleep. I am much more concerned about those prescription psychiatric medications. The problem is, as long as we have a government that is subservient to corporate interests, we're going to have these dangerous products out there. Okay, we're getting on back to computers. We were talking about how Switzerland may actually ban Windows 10 for all of its privacy violations. We're talking about ways to shut down some of these default settings. But there's another article that came on out here from Russia Today, which says there is an unpleasant reality, and that is that no matter what platform you use, it's all under surveillance. And that Microsoft is probably just catching up with Windows 10. This is coming from Chris, I think it's pronounced Kitze or Kitze, founder of the Unseen Encrypted Internet Server. And following the release of Windows 10, tech bloggers warned its privacy settings were invasive by default. Now, the end user license agreement for Windows 10 is 12,000 words. And it's 12,000 words because Microsoft knows you're not going to read it all. And when you install Windows 10 with the default settings, you are effectively giving the system access to private information, including location, history, text messages, and any information shared via them, personal contacts, and calendar notes about plans for exact dates, among other things. And the data can be stored and preserved if the company considers it necessary. Why would they want to go into my calendar? That's a good one right there. Are they just doing it because they can? Now, fortunately, on my one lone Windows 10 machine, I do have all those default settings turned off, and I don't use it for mail, and I don't use it for contacts. I'm not using it really for much of anything, except to learn Windows 10, which is a slow process here. YouTube is now basically admitting that they're shifting their business model. When YouTube was first starting out and they were looking for viewers and they were looking for producers, it seemed fair and honest. But now there are so many independent news reporters getting more hits than the corporate news. Basically, YouTube is now promoting videos from the corporate media and basically shoving the truthers down again. More censorship, more control. So I want to get Mike Smith on here about Real Video, get more information about that. Once again, Facebook is at war with Alex Jones. Following on from a strike for violating YouTube policies, InfoWars founder Alex Jones has been hit with sanctions by Facebook for contravening its community standards. And the social network, which is losing money like crazy in the stock market, removed 4 of Jones' videos for violating its policies and banned him from using his account for 30 days. Now, if there are further policy breaches by Jones or his admins, his page could be permanently banned. Here is the problem with that. We know there's a built-in bias at Facebook. We also know that a lot of these companies will just accept a complaint from somebody without verifying it to be true, because they don't want to spend the money. They don't want to hire the staff to actually go on out and see if the complaints that are coming in about whatreallyhappened.com are actually based in fact. They'll just get a couple of complaints. Oh, a hate group, hate and racism, hate and racism. All right, he's banned hate and racism, which, by the way, has happened. On certain systems, I am now blacklisted for the categories of hate and racism. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. By Amazon customer. It works for me. Returned to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, distract yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And getting on back to Alex Jones, as you know, he's also dealing with this lawsuit brought by some of the Sandy Hook parents against both him and Wolfgang Halbig. And they're going through pretrial hearings right now, trying to get the case dismissed. And this is going to be one to watch because it's signaling this effort to basically use lawfare to silence those who are trying to get the truth out. Even if they don't win the lawsuit, they can bankrupt somebody just with the legal fees. So it's a very serious situation. Now, as far as Alex Jones' case is going, Dallas attorney Mark Enoch, who's representing Alex Jones, will be in a Travis County courtroom tomorrow introducing a motion to dismiss the defamation case under what's called the Texas Citizens Participation Act. This was a law unanimously passed by the legislature in 2011 and signed into law by Governor Rick Perry that was intended to protect citizens' First Amendment rights from meritless claims intended to silence them. Now, the attorney for the Sandy Hook parents says, this is just a stalling tactic. And that the suit is basically Enoch is saying the suit is a strategic device to silence Jones as well as anyone else who refuses to accept what the mainstream media and government tell them and prevent them from expressing any doubt or raising questions. That's exactly what it is. Now, I'm hoping that the judge is going to realize that the Texas law says, yeah, they can't be sued. And then there's the issue of malice. Anytime you have a defamation lawsuit or slander or libel, you have to prove that the person acted maliciously. In the absence of malice, there is no case. But if this judge does move forward into the trial, first of all, it's going to drag on. Could drag on into 2020. Could go all the way to the Supreme Court. Ultimately, it's a First Amendment issue. That freedom of speech includes the right to ask questions and express doubt. So, apparently, on June 28th of this year, the Supreme Court denied a petition by Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht that would have forced the court to address where government surveillance and the Fourth Amendment intersect online. And this 34-year-old Ulbricht, who is currently serving a double life sentence for a nonviolent crime, petitioned the court to review his case, specifically whether the evidence used to arrest and convict him was seized constitutionally or not. The evidence in question was obtained through warrantless government surveillance of the wireless router in his private home. And the court's refusal to review the case affirms an outdated legal precedent that effectively nullifies the Fourth Amendment in the age of the internet. And of course, we know that the current government has no interest in the Fourth Amendment, or for that matter, anything in the Bill of Rights. What did George Bush call the Constitution? A blankety-blank piece of paper? Which shows how little he knows. It's actually parchment. Now, Russia has passed a law that says any company that is collecting personal information from Russian citizens are obliged to store that data inside Russia. And the supporters of the law cite security reasons. You know, opponents are seeing it as an infringement of freedoms. Now, I don't know where those opponents are coming from, because data is data is data, and the servers can be anywhere in this virtual world. But I can imagine that there are interested intelligence agencies who would like to have unfettered access to the servers, which is going to be much easier in countries outside of Russia. Because I imagine Russia is going to be keeping a very, very close eye on these companies, especially after what happened with all these privacy breaches with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Now, reversing that trend, Kaspersky Lab, which has been trying to defend itself from accusations that it uses its antivirus software to spy on people, is now moving their data center from Russia to Switzerland, where it's easier for people to come on in. Kaspersky has offered to show the source code for what they do to anybody who wants to take a look. So far, nobody wants to take a look because the job here is to smear Kaspersky and the Russians. Don't distract us with the facts here. We've got a job to do. Over at Dixon's Carphone, they're now fessing up to the fact that their data breach was actually much, much worse than originally reported. Originally, they claimed 1 million records had been compromised. Last month, the company announced that 5.9 million customer bank card details and 1.2 million personal data records had been hacked all the way back in 2017 and went unnoticed. Basically, the company has now backtracked and said that the total customer records that have been accessed was 10 million. And the major data breach involved shoppers at Curry's PC World and Dixon's Travel. But people there are saying doesn't seem to be any sign of a related fraud. Well, somebody's collecting together all this information for some reason. Maybe it's just NSA justifying their paychecks or something. But something that you need to be very careful about, and we just had this happen to us a little while ago, is that miscreants will do what's called a ding on your credit card, where they won't empty your credit card account. That's too obvious. What they'll do is they'll hit your credit card for like $2. And it'll be in some innocuous name. And most people looking at their credit card statement, they'll go down, 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 down. They'll skip over a $2 entry. They're not paying attention. So somebody who got 10 million customer records from one of these servers, if they go on out and they ding 10 million credit cards for $2 a piece, you can see how profitable that this would be. So my advice to you is, if you're still using credit cards, you got to check that bill very, very carefully every month, because it's a serious, serious situation. Apparently, getting on back to Alex Jones here, Spotify is bringing Alex Jones InfoWars to as its latest podcast. They're calling him a seasoned radio broadcaster. Well, at our age, aren't we all? And this is happening even as YouTube is pulling down InfoWars and Facebook is suspending Alex Jones. But Spotify, no problems. Spotify, the only problem is Spotify, unfortunately, is embroiled in a couple of lawsuits over using content without permission and without compensation. It's a class action lawsuit, and actually Claire is part of the class here. So it's hard to be enthusiastic about them, but I'm glad that Alex Jones is getting the exposure, because he needs it. And we need to support him and back him up, and we need to share all this information around here, because there is so much at stake with this attempt to basically use the threat of a lawsuit as a weapon against anybody who refuses to believe as they are told to believe. I mean, we've already seen it with all these laws about questioning the Holocaust. People are going to jail for saying, "Eine Minuten, mein Freund." You know, what's going on over here? The data doesn't line on up. Sorry, off to prison you go. That's the world we're heading into. Shades of Orwell. All right, let's take a phone call from John in Humboldt. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I was just I heard you talk about the Fourth Amendment and in the NSA and everybody walking on our rights, pretty much. And I think that what should happen is maybe Judicial Watch or somebody in that case should actually go after the Third Amendment, because they are quasi-military, so therefore they're pretty much digitally, housing and quartering a soldier in your house.
Yeah, I could see it that way. And in our little article on, updating the interpretation of the Declaration of Independence, we make that point. They have placed a spy in our home, and that was the original purpose for the British quartering of troops in the homes. It wasn't for a lack of housing. They just wanted to have a British officer in the homes of any prominent families who might be in a position to support or incite the rebellion. And they don't need to do that anymore. They don't need a human in here anymore, because all of our devices are compromised.
But as like you say, over the last few years or so, we're paying for the electricity to have these people spying on us. So therefore, or I don't know. It was just
you're right. It's a Fifth Amendment violation. The government is using our electricity, our hard drive space, our memory, our CPU cycles without just and proper compensation.
Yes. Yep. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe somebody will pick up those cookies and figure out what to do with them. Okay.
Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go.
Okay,
did you have something else?
No, that was it.
All right. Thanks for the phone call. The phone lines are now open. Getting on back to computers here, and I've seen a lot of these, so you got to be on the lookout for these. PayPal has actually issued a warning. Hackers are using a fake fraud prevention email to trick users into installing a dangerous computer virus. And I get these all the time. You know, your bank account has been compromised, and if it's coming from a bank you don't do business with, you immediately know it's some kind of a phishing or malware attack. But apparently this one is particularly nasty, and it even has the correct return address, service@paypal.com. And the subject line is PayPal account warning. And it prompts you to open an attached Word document laced with malware. Now, again, the way opening a Word document infects your machine is if you have macros enabled. And if you are using Microsoft Office, unless you have a real need for macros, you should have them totally disabled across the entire product line. It's a major open vector. And I know it's frustrating because you've paid all this money to have all this flexibility and all this connectability, and you're having to turn it off to protect yourself from these criminals out there. You're not getting your money's worth with these machines or the software. The criminals are forcing you to turn it off. Anyway, this virus that comes in on the Word document appears to only hit Windows machines with Mac, iPhone, and Android users unaffected, even if they open the fraudulent email. So maybe JavaScript or something like that. But again, this is becoming very common as well. That you'll get a letter, you know, your email, this is one I get a lot. Your email service is about to be terminated unless you click here. Get that one a lot. As you know, Donald Trump is out there touring the country, building support for the GOP for the midterms. And down at Tampa, the crowd was out there chanting, CNN sucks, CNN sucks, which has sort of replaced lock her up as the MAGA slogan, as it were. They don't have to worry about it, though, because CNN's ratings have dropped again. In fact, more people are watching Shark Week than are watching CNN. So they're in serious, serious trouble over there. Pardon me. Apparently, Al Franken wants to make a political comeback. So he'll be stepping on in to the fray here. And we have the inevitable article from the Daily Mail about how the blistering heat waves are caused by global warming, and it will cause up to 52,000 people to die by 2080. So they're taking advantage over the fact that this is the hottest time of year to push the global warming nonsense. Now, you've probably been hearing all over the TV that this is the hottest, or was the hottest June on record. No, it wasn't. In fact, it's actually about 2 degrees cooler than it was this time last year. They're just putting this stuff out there and insisting it's their First Amendment right to lie to the people, because that's why we make the big bucks. And certainly back in, I think it was 1936, it was a lot hotter. But they're still pushing this nonsense. Now, down on the Big Isle, today marks 89 days since the first fissure opened in Leilani Estates. And this is now officially the longest eruption since they began keeping records down there on the Big Island. The lava is still coming out of Fissure 8, still pretty much going where it's been going, off to the edge of the ocean. We keep seeing these collapse events up at the Kilauea crater, and the last one produced the equivalent of a 4.0 earthquake. Interestingly enough, the city of Volcano, which is very, very close to Kilauea, hence the name Volcano, they're starting to get aggressive about luring tourism back, and they're putting up a website, and they're going to try and do some promotion. The way the corporate media has presented the Hawaii eruption makes it sound like the entire state, or at least the entire island, is engulfed in molten lava. That is flat out simply not true. And Volcano is trying to basically get word on out that most of the Big Island is still fine. In fact, now's the time to come and see the volcano from a safe distance, emphasis on that one. Volcano itself is a very nice little funky town. They got lots of little art galleries and all kinds of fun stuff up there that you know. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because, yes, this volcano has hit the entire economy of the entire island, not just the people who lost their homes, who are in serious trouble. But, you know, volcano was basically enjoyed a tremendous amount of tourism because of the lure of the Volcano National Park, which is now closed until further notice. So, yeah, we need to get the tourists to go on back there. I mean, personally, I'd love to go down and see the volcano. I mean, I've seen the volcano in a minor eruption. I'd like to see this one. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials. In fact, the last break of the show. And then we've got a caller waiting on the line, and we'll be talking to him after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today, and we're going to go right to the telephones. Ken in Fort Worth, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy, howdy. Hey, in Irving, Texas, 2 parking garages collapsed.
When?
Lately.
Okay.
It was on radio. They're reporting it on BAP radio in Dallas.
Oh, man. That's not good.
And nobody got hurt. That's what I understand. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah, they reported 1, and it's 2. I'm starting to wonder, maybe earthquakes? I don't know. They said shifting. I don't know. Anyway,
well,
that's
were they connected? Were they connected in any way at the same location?
Yes, they were next door to each other.
Okay, maybe looking at a subsidence issue.
Yeah. Snoop around, see what you can hunt. Also, if you Google Putin gave Trump 160 gigabytes, kilobytes, whatever it is, terabytes, and evidently what you know that Trump told Putin that there was going to be a terror attack in St. Petersburg, Russia, right?
Well, I've heard that one, and as far as the story about Putin giving Trump, as far as
I think Trump he felt bad if anybody got hurt or killed, and I think
my turn.
Yeah,
my turn. The story about Putin giving Trump all of this data strikes me as fake news. Even with yes, even with the latest in high-density shirt pocket drives, we're talking a lot of drives to hold that much data. So
the point?
Yeah, from
two thumb drives, right?
No.
I don't know. I'm just telling you, you can hunt it and scoop it up and tear it apart.
Well, I'm telling you, I have looked at the story, and it seems to be fake news here. Just from a technical point of view, what they're describing can't happen. Some drives do not come with that kind of a capacity on them. Even shirt pocket drives, you can get a single terabyte onto one. I have a couple of those, but this story was about, 300 terabytes or something? That's 300 of those shirt pocket drives. It's a little hard to hide.
160.
Huh?
160.
All right, so
anyway,
160.
You know about it. Oh, okay, I'm talking to her. I'm going.
All right. We're going to let you go here. Even just 160 of those shirt pocket drives, that's a lot of drives. It's kind of hard to hide. It strikes me, again, as more of the fake news that we are getting from all over the place here. All righty. Well, apparently out in Colton, California, a youth pastor, Malo Victor Monteiro, has been arrested on suspicion of numerous felony charges related to sexual assault on juveniles. And apparently, according to Wildomar police, they received a report of lewd acts that had allegedly been committed by the youth pastor in June. And during the investigation, they uncovered several additional victims stretching all the way back to 1999. Monteiro was arrested Friday morning without incident and was booked at Coas Bird Detention Center. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here. I got to do the Jim Goddard show up there in Vancouver today. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots to share with you. Please take what you learn here, especially about the wars, especially about the political corruption. Share it with everyone that you know. We have to work to get around the walls that are being put up by YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Google. We have to bring back the sneaker net. So please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please donate to What Really Happened. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.